It was just another quiet Tuesday evening when John decided to take the long route home. The sky was bruised with fading orange and deep violet, a breeze rustling through the nearly empty park. His mind wandered aimlessly, work stress, an overdue call to his sister, the silence that had filled his life since his mother passed. And then he heard it, a soft cry, sharp, cutting through the rustling leaves. He froze. It wasn't a bird. It wasn't a cat. It was unmistakably human, a baby. Heart thudding, John turned toward the sound. As he stepped past a row of hedges, he saw it. A stroller. Alone. Parked beside a faded wooden bench under the tall, whispering trees. No one in sight. The crying grew louder. He rushed over, eyes darting around. His gut tightened. This wasn't right. No parent, no passerby. Just an infant wrapped in a pastel blanket, fists clenched, face red with distress. And then he noticed the note, taped to the side of the stroller, slightly crumpled, edges fluttering in the breeze. His fingers trembled as he peeled it off and unfolded it. His name is Michael. Please take care of him. I'm sorry, John. He blinked. Wait, what? He read it again. The words didn't change. Take care of him. I'm sorry, John. His name. It wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't a generic plea to a stranger. This note was written for him. His breath caught. Hands shaking, he looked down at the baby again. The crying had softened into soft hiccups, eyes glistening as if pleading. John stared back, paralyzed. His mind raced through 100 impossible explanations. Was someone playing a cruel joke? Was it even possible this child had anything to do with him? No. He didn't have kids. He would have known, wouldn't he? He glanced around one last time, then scooped the baby into his arms. The infant, surprisingly quieted, snuggled into his chest like he knew him. John's heart broke a little. He sat on the bench, holding the tiny boy, the note still clutched in his fist. His fingers traced the handwriting over and over. It looked familiar, like something from years ago, hauntingly similar to someone he once knew, someone he'd tried to forget. Then he flipped the note over. A second message was scribbled in haste. If you're reading this, you need to know, he's not just your responsibility. He's your second chance. Second chance? A chill ran down his spine. He read those lines again and again, hearing the words echo in his head. Not just your responsibility, your second chance. What did it mean? Why now? Who would leave a child like this? And why involve him? He tried to think back to the days before life got so busy, so hollow. To a woman he once loved fiercely, recklessly. Her name was Marissa. She disappeared from his life almost 5 years ago. No explanation. No closure. Just silence. Could it be? No. It couldn't be her. That chapter was long closed. Or so he thought. The baby squirmed in his arms, and he instinctively adjusted his grip, soothing him gently. A sudden jolt of emotion surged through him. Fear. Protectiveness. A strange warmth he hadn't felt in years. He looked at the note again. Michael. Could Marissa have named a child after his middle name? Michael was never public knowledge. Barely anyone even knew. Unless he reached into his pocket with trembling hands and dialed 911. When the dispatcher answered, his voice cracked. I found a baby. Alone. In the park. But there's a note. And it's addressed to me. They promised to send an officer and child services. He gave them the location. But even as he ended the call, a pit of unease settled deeper into his chest. This wasn't just a case of abandonment. This was personal. And that's when he saw it. Tucked inside the baby's blanket was something else, a photograph. He carefully pulled it out. It was old, wrinkled at the corners, slightly faded, but unmistakable. It was a photo of him and Marissa, standing together outside her tiny apartment. She was smiling, her hand resting over her stomach. He remembered that day, vividly. It was the last time they were together, the night she told him she was leaving town. But she never said why. John stared at the photo for what felt like hours. The memory, the confusion, the hurt, It all came rushing back like a wave crashing into him. And now a baby. A note. Her handwriting. His name. He didn't know what scared him more, the possibility that this baby was his or the possibility that someone had been hiding the truth from him for years. The baby stirred again, one tiny hand clutching his finger. The connection was undeniable. Far in the distance, red and blue lights began to flash through the trees. Help was coming, but so were answers. And he wasn't sure he was ready for either, because if this was really his child, then everything in his life was about to change. Forever. The flashing lights of the police cruiser painted the park in haunting reds and blues. John stood up slowly, still cradling the baby in his arms, as if letting go might shatter everything that was holding him together in that moment. Officer Ramirez stepped out first, calm, professional, but her eyes widened slightly when she saw the baby and the panic on John's face. "Sir, we received your call. Can you tell me exactly what happened?" John handed over the note and the photo silently, his voice refusing to come out. He felt like he was outside his own body, watching someone else's life spiral. The officer scanned the note quickly, then frowned. "This is addressed to you?" she asked, looking up. He nodded. "Yes. My name is John Michael Ashford." Her brows knit tighter. "Did you know this child?" I don't know. I think I might. I mean, I didn't know he existed until tonight. But I knew the woman. Marissa." The name hung in the air like a ghost. John expected questions, suspicion, maybe even accusations, but Ramirez just softened, sensing something deeper than paperwork and protocols. Child services arrived soon after, a young woman named Clara taking temporary custody of the baby while the formal process began. But even as they wrapped the child in a fresh blanket and checked his vitals, the baby's eyes kept following John, reaching for him, as if drawn by blood. The connection was undeniable. Before they drove off, Clara gave him a moment. "He stopped crying when you held him. That says something." John nodded, barely managing to speak. "I don't want him to go through the system. If he's mine, then prove it," she said gently, "and fight for him." Back home, John couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the note, heard the baby's soft cries, remembered Marissa's smile, and how suddenly it had disappeared from his life. He dug through an old box in the attic the next morning. It was covered in dust and grief, filled with forgotten photos, love letters, pieces of a younger, more hopeful version of himself. And there it was, a letter Marissa had written him, one he never opened. He hadn't had the courage then. Too angry, too hurt. She had vanished without warning, left only that envelope behind. He had thrown it in the box and tried to forget. Now his fingers trembled as he finally peeled it open. "Dear John, if you're reading this, maybe I'm gone. Or maybe you've come looking. I know you're angry, and I don't blame you, but I need you to understand why I left. It wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I was scared. I found out I was pregnant, and I was terrified, not of being a mother, but of what that would do to you. You had just lost your job. Your mom was sick. You were drowning and didn't even realize it. I couldn't add more weight. So I left. I ran. I know it was wrong, but I told myself I'd come back when things were better. When I was better. But then something happened. I got sick, and I didn't know how much time I had. Michael is your son, John. He's smart and kind, and he smiles just like you. I raised him as best I could, but I don't have long now. I know I should have told you sooner, but if there's one thing I beg of you, don't let him grow up without you. Give him the love I couldn't finish giving. Forgive me." Tears splashed onto the paper. John sat still for a long time, letter pressed to his chest. It felt like everything he thought was broken had been pulled back together, but with the jagged edges still showing. The next morning, he went to the hospital. He asked to see the records, and yes, Marissa had been admitted 6 months ago. Terminal diagnosis. A nurse remembered her, said she left quietly one evening and never returned. She hadn't vanished. She had made a choice, a painful, selfless choice to leave her son somewhere she thought he'd be found, Not by strangers, but by him. John left the hospital with fire in his heart. He drove straight to the child services office. Clara was surprised to see him so soon. Back already? I want custody, he said, voice firm. Her eyes softened again. That's not something that happens overnight. I'll do the tests. I'll take the classes. I'll do whatever you ask. But I'm not walking away from him. Not again. She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, then let's begin. Days passed in a blur of forms, questions, waiting rooms. But each time he saw Michael, even for a moment, something inside him healed a little more. The baby smiled when John held him, laughed when he made silly faces, reached for his finger like it was home. And soon, something incredible happened. The DNA results came in. Michael was his. The confirmation didn't surprise him, but it shook him all the same, because now there was no room for doubt. This boy was his son, and that meant he had a second chance at something he thought he'd lost forever: family. But even as the paperwork moved forward, one question kept clawing at him. Who else knew? Because the note wasn't just a mother's final plea. It was also a warning. There was more to this story, and John was about to find out exactly how deep the truth went. It was the first night Michael slept in John's home. The crib had arrived earlier that afternoon. Assembling it had been oddly therapeutic, like building a bridge between the man he used to be and the father he was becoming. The baby monitor buzzed softly beside John's bed, each little sound reminding him that the silence he once hated was finally over. But sleep still didn't come, because something Marissa wrote wouldn't leave him alone. He's not just your responsibility, he's your second chance. Those words had haunted him since the park. And now, with the DNA test confirming Michael was his, John kept wondering, why that phrasing? Why so specific? Was there something Marissa had wanted to tell him but couldn't? The letter, the note, the way she disappeared and reappeared only through written words, it felt like a puzzle. One piece was still missing. So, the next morning, he returned to her last known address, a modest apartment building tucked behind a rundown cafe. The place looked abandoned now. A "for rent" sign hung crooked on the door. But when he knocked, a woman from the next unit peeked out. You looking for Marissa? John turned. Yes. Do you know what happened to her? The woman nodded solemnly. She was sweet, kept to herself. But she got sick. Real sick. I think she knew her time was short. The last week she was here, she cried a lot. Not because she was scared of dying, I think, but because of the baby. John's throat tightened. Did she ever mention me? The neighbor frowned, then nodded slowly. Actually, yes. Said your name once. Said she hoped you'd find the letter, and that you'd forgive her. He swallowed hard. Did she leave anything behind? The woman paused, then disappeared into her apartment. She returned moments later with a small box. She gave this to me, told me to keep it safe in case anyone ever came asking. John took the box with trembling hands. Inside were two things: a second letter and a folded birth certificate. He read the certificate first. Michael James Ashford. Mother, Marissa Lane. Father, unknown. It hit him like a punch to the chest. She hadn't listed him. She had truly planned to raise him alone. And yet she still wanted him to know. Then he opened the letter. John, if you found this, then the truth is already in motion. There's something I didn't tell you, couldn't tell you, in the first letter. Michael isn't just your son. He's also in danger. I don't know who's watching us, but ever since I found out I was pregnant, someone's been following me. I thought I was being paranoid until things started happening. Doors left open. My phone tampered with. A man watching from across the street. At first I thought it was connected to your family, maybe someone from your father's side. But now I'm sure it's bigger than that. There's something about Michael. I don't know what, but someone wants him, or wants him gone. I was too scared to go to the police. They wouldn't believe me. I barely believe it myself. But I know I couldn't protect him forever. You're stronger than me, John. And smarter. You'll figure this out. Just promise me one thing. Don't trust anyone until you know everything. He's not just your responsibility. He's your second chance to do what I couldn't. To protect him, no matter what. John dropped the letter. His hands were ice cold. Danger? This wasn't just a story about lost love or fatherhood. This was a warning. A cry for help from beyond the grave. And someone was still out there, watching, wanting something from his son. Suddenly, every strange thing he'd brushed off the past few days came flooding back. The car idling too long across the street, the shadow in the grocery store aisle, the dead air on the other end of that random phone call. It wasn't coincidence. He picked up his phone and called Clara. I need to speak with someone. Someone who can help someone with more than just forms and checklists. She heard the panic in his voice. John, are you okay?
No.
And I don't think Michael is safe either. An hour later, they met in her office. John brought everything, the letter, the box, the birth certificate. Clara listened without interrupting. Her fingers tapped lightly on her desk, calculating, cautious. When he finished, she leaned in. We have someone in the department who handles sensitive custody cases. People with complicated pasts. If what you're saying is true, you'll need more than just social workers. You'll need protection. He nodded. And answers. That night, John moved with Michael to a secure facility offered by the department. Temporary housing for at-risk parents. It felt strange. He never imagined needing security for a child he didn't even know existed a week ago. But nothing about this felt imagined anymore. Michael was at the center of something. Something bigger. And John was no longer just a bystander in his own life. He was a father. And he was about to do whatever it took. The next morning, the investigator arrived. A retired FBI agent turned private advisor for the state. Her name was Helen Porter. Sharp eyes. No-nonsense attitude. She scanned the letter. Read it twice. Then she looked at John. Do you know who your father was? John blinked. What does that have to do with anything? Your last name, Ashford. That's not a common name. And it's not a clean one either. Your father was connected to several offshore accounts and, let's say, untraceable assets. John shook his head. I haven't seen him in 20 years. He walked out when I was a kid. Helen didn't flinch. Doesn't mean others forgot. People who lose money, they hold grudges. If Michael has any connection, even just blood, to that legacy, he could be a target. John's breath caught in his throat. You think this is about money? Helen stood.
Money.
Revenge. Leverage.
Could be anything.
But one thing's clear, someone knew about Michael long before you did. And they were waiting. The room fell silent. John looked down at his son, sleeping peacefully in a world that had already decided he was valuable, dangerous, or both. He leaned closer, brushing a hand gently over Michael's hair. I lost Marissa. I'm not losing him. Helen nodded. Then we start digging.
Now.
And as John held his son close, a storm brewed in the distance. Not just of weather, but of truth. Because sometimes secrets don't just change your life. They redefine who you are, and who you're willing to become to protect the ones you love. Sometimes, life gives us second chances, not through perfection, but through pain. When we choose love over fear and courage over silence, even the most broken stories can become something beautiful. Family isn't just about blood. It's about the moments we show up when no one else does. And above all, the truth may hurt, but hiding it destroys.